Hello and welcome to yet another dazed and especially confused episode of the Audiophile Man. And what do we have for you this time around? We have some speakers from Germany from the company ELAC, and the speakers are called the 31 2.2s. The 31 2.2s are strange and no mistake. Well, to my eyes, if not yours. Now, looking straight at these speakers head on, the 31 2.2s look tiny, and then you look around the corner and you'll see the cabinet move back into 3D space for miles and miles. In fact, the cabinet measures 208mm by 122 by 270mm. But then there is the weight. They are surprisingly heavy. Brace yourself, folks, before you pick them up, because they hit 7.2 kilograms. And for such small form factor speakers, that is heavy. Now, part of the reason for this is the unibody design, built from aluminium. Yes, that's right, the cabinet is made from metal, not MDF. This cabinet also incorporates a bass reflex port on the rear. On the front is a small 115mm AS-XR mid-bass driver, apparently using a rather large voice coil plus a ring magnet, and as I'm sure you can see, that distinct crystal pattern. All of that melded together promises good bass performance. We will see. Just above, of course, is the tweeter, in this case a Jet 6, which replaces the Jet 5 by enhancing the tracks and the foil design. This tweeter is fronted by a metal grille. Other components inside the box include air core coils, metal oxide resistors, MKP film capacitors, and Vanden Hull wiring, available in black high gloss and white high gloss. The speakers can be bi-wired if you fancy. One thing, these are 4 ohm speakers, and so we'll need a bit of a push to get them going. Any amplifier from around, what, 50 watts and upwards should be fine. Finally, the speakers arrive with a kind of aluminium rubber combo tray that sits underneath each speaker, acting as a kind of isolation decoupling platform, which I found intriguing. I'll be reviewing these particular platforms. I'll also be reviewing the 4 ohm impedance on my valve monoblocks. So, how do these things actually sound? Well, let's go to the sound quality tests and we'll find out. To begin the sound quality tests, I grabbed a CD, Lush's Spooky, that's the name of the album, 4AD is the label, and the track Tiny Smiles, that's the one I played, offering a twin female vocal presentation, lead, rhythm and bass guitars plus drums. Now, I am in the fortunate position of having a pair of valve monoblocks which offer 8 ohm plus 4 ohm sockets, so I could test both. Now, part of the reason I wanted to test the 4 ohm impedance setting bit is because I have reviewed 4 ohm speakers in the past, and they sound pretty awful at 8 ohms, but they come into their own at 4 ohms, not surprisingly, of course. When plugged into 8 ohm pots, they sound rather brash and pretty nasty. So I wondered what the ELACs would sound like at 8 ohms and what they might sound like at 4 ohms. And I was actually quite happy with either 4 or 8 ohms, and that was rather surprising. Now, there were differences. Yes, the 4 ohm playback sounded more laid back, mid-range was open and airy. The 8 ohm selection dialed up the mid-range and the treble, accentuating those performances while reducing space around the upper mids. So for this review, I decided to stick with the 4 ohm sockets on the back of my monoblocks. They provided, overall, a better balance and neutral sound, with that rather nice airy mid-range feedback. Bass felt a little bit more integrated into the mix as well. Now, if you are running valve amplifiers and you do have the choice between 4 ohm and 8 ohm, 4 ohm also helps when you're faced with compressed sound. For example, I played The Cure's Wild Mood Swings CD. This is a 1996 production, suffers from excessive peak limiting, lots of compression. That overly compressed sound I was hearing was bearable in 4-ohm mode, unlistenable in 8-ohm mode. So it's nice to have the choice. Now, if you run a basic solid-state amplifier, a lot of what I said doesn't mean much at all, because solid-state amps kind of roam between 4 and 16 ohms anyway, so you can ignore everything I've just said if you're running solid state. But if you are running a valve amp, bear all that in mind. So on with the rest of the review. While I was tweaking, I also settled on towing in the speakers to point just outside of my ears. Firing the ELACs directly at my ears was fine, but I found angling them slightly outside provided a slight enhancement, so I left them there. Next, well, what about these strange little trays with the rubber inserts, the isolation decouplers? They were supplied in the box, so I thought I'd try them out. Now, of course, I had the speakers on stands, but adding the little trays underneath the speakers on the stands added some clarity. That is, I could hear better cymbal taps that lurked in the rear of the mix, while bass was better focused now, tighter and more precise. So I decided to keep the decouplers in place during the rest of this review. Next, well, I brought in some competing speakers, and I grabbed a pair of the larger EVO 4.2 speakers from Wharfedale. Well, saying that, I suppose every speaker compared to the ELACs is larger. They're also less than half the price of the ELAC, so it's an intriguing challenge. To repeat, looking at the two pairs, the ELACs were obviously more expensive, but surely they couldn't beat the EVOs. I mean, the EVOs just looked the part. And a fascinating comparison they produced. Firstly, I thought the EVO performance was excellent. I do like these speakers. Even so, the bass was not quite as impressive as the ELACs. The EVOs obviously were excellent for the price point, and they are, what is it, I don't know, £650 or so. But the ELACs integrated bass better and produced more impact to boot. In upper frequency terms, again, integration was not quite as effective on the EVOs as it was on the ELACs. The sound from the ELACs was neater, tighter, slicker, and tonally better balanced. The EVOs sounded just a little bit sloppy by comparison, but again, for the price, that was kind of expected. So I upped the ante and I brought in a pair of Leak Sandwich 150s, which are just as physically imposing as the EVOs. This time, £999 will buy you a pair of Leaks. So again, still cheaper than the ELACs by about £650. Now, the Leaks were better organized than the EVOs. Comparing the Leaks to the ELACs, well, the mids and the treble from the Leaks were integrated very well, sounding detailed, while excellent in terms of mid-range insight, revealing that the Leaks are real bargains for anyone interested in big speakers for 1K. Bass was balanced too from the Leaks. In fact, the Leaks really pushed the ELACs despite their lower cost, providing superb focus and precision around the mid-range. The ELACs, though, had the edge in treble terms, providing further extension, especially during the delicate cymbal taps, while bass added further focus to give these diminutive ELACs real punch. The Leaks, as you might expect, sounded larger. They occupied more space, but the ELACs had a slightly better tonality around the lower frequencies. But look, for those looking at a small footprint design and leaning towards a much smaller cabinet, the fact that the ELACs were even in the big sound game was quite remarkable. Then I brought in the Aura 2s from Wharfedale. I'll put a little link above, I've only just reviewed them, which are, what, a few £100 dearer, I think. The Aura 2s are around 2K, so a few £100 more. In this particular case, the ELACs struggled, but for the price and that sheer size difference, well, I'm not really surprised. The Aura 2s had now moved onto the next rung up on the sonic ladder. Detail and information from the Aura 2s was impressive. Tonal realism, imagery, again, impressive, and all better than the ELACs. Even so, the ELACs were never put to shame. They fought their corner. They put up a good fight. Sure, they lost every sonic round against the Aura 2s, but they drew applause from me at just how well they performed, considering both their price and their relatively small size. Switching to vinyl now, and Frank Sinatra and the LP The World We Knew on Reprise, and the duet with his daughter Nancy on the single Something Stupid. I was impressed with the instrumental separation from the ELACs on this track, as each instrument in the orchestra found room for itself right across this wide soundstage, with strings on the right, horns wandering to the left of centre, and a pair of guitars way off onto the left. The clarity from this performance fixed the attention on the performances. And that, folks, is basically the review of the ELAC 31 2.2s. Let me give you a few final thoughts, and I have a few of those. I'll give you a few pros and cons, and then a rating. The ELAC 31 2.2 speakers are, at least to me, very strange indeed. The aluminium casing, the extended cabinet, the high-end components in such a small form factor, but the unexpected high-quality performance most of all. I expected sonic compromise along with the compromise in size, but for the most part that never happened. I remained impressed throughout the review. Sure, the size did prove an issue when comparative designs were wheeled in, but really, well, for those looking for a high-quality sound from a small footprint, low-visibility audiophile speaker, I can't think, off the top of my head, of a comparable competition. The ELAC 31 2.2s are, for me, the surprise of 2024, and in a nice way. Pros and cons. And in the good section, and Mr. Obvious, the small footprint. These are dinky little things, and they'll go just about anywhere you fancy. Next, the bass. I was rather surprised at the bass. It might not be the biggest, most volcanic bass you've ever heard, but for the size of these speakers, it gives quite an impact. Mid-range detail. Again, surprised by the mid-range information here, the clarity. And finally, extended treble. Well, you're going to expect that, I think. In the bad section, nothing at all, which means I'm going to be giving the ELAC 31 2.2 speakers an award-winning rating. I'm going to give it a groovy and an 8 out of 10. Congratulations to ELAC. And that's a lot, folks. Thank you for staying to the end of this video. Can I ask you, just down below, can you click on the like and subscribe buttons, please, just to help this channel grow? Further down, I'll put links to ELAC if you want to check out the speakers a little bit more. Also, my links are down there. I have a Facebook group, which you're welcome to join. I have a website, which you're welcome to visit. And please check out my Patreon page too. Has the exclusive hi-fi news, etc. videos every single week. There's a new one out this week. Plus buyer's guide information, features on music, features on hi-fi, tour videos, and so on. Check it out. I'll be back on Friday with a new music alert. Hope to have your company right then. Until then, folks, bye-bye for now.